Raider Nation, what is going on? Eddie Paskal here, back at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Upon Further Review, brought to you by the good people, our pals at Coors Light. As you see on the screen, joined once again by our very own Paul Gutierrez from Raiders.com, and we, again, are in the midst of one of my favorite little portions of the year. We are looking ahead to Training Camp 2025. We have a lot of questions. You have a lot of questions. We need answers to said questions. So last week, we cracked open a nice cold six-pack of questions surrounding the Raiders' offense. Today, we do the very same thing for the other side of the ball, the defense. So, Paul G., I got us rocking last week, hitting you with the first question. So please, as you are a guest in our dojo here, deliver the first one to me, please, sir.
Too much advantage, your dojo,
yes,
as the great Mr. Miyagi would say. But yeah, when we're talking about the defense, I mean, everything kind of starts and stops with Maxx Crosby. So let's take our eye off of him for half a second here. I'm real intrigued, and I'm wondering how intrigued you are by the specter of Tyrie and what he could potentially bring to the defensive line, the pass rush in particular this year. We've seen him all up and down the line. I've seen him standing up over a center, which would be a fearsome sight for any guy hiking the ball to have to look up and see him there. But where do you think he actually, when it comes to Tyrie, where do you think he actually could be at his best on this defensive line this year?
Ooh, at his best. That's a great question. And I think, if we want to look at the roster in totality from 1 to 90 right now, Paul, I don't know if there is a bigger mystery, a bigger wild card, a bigger unknown than our friend Tyrie Wilson. Now going into year 3 in silver and black, which is crazy. It feels like he got drafted 4 months ago. But in terms of where he's going to be the most effective, and I mean this in the most respectful, most positive way, when he's going to be at his best, I think if he's going to be, he's going to be at his best when the guys around him are at their best, right? And we've heard so much about this defensive line, kind of getting a redo from 2024. And you and I had this conversation. We've talked to a lot of our friends that cover this team about, going into last year, and this team is in Costa Mesa, we're having this vision of what the defensive line is going to be, right? It's going to be the tone setter for, candidly, the entire roster. And then you look up, and Christian Wilkins is down, Malcolm Koonce is down. It never really materialized into that.
Right.
Well, they're getting to run it back this year, 12 months later. So I think that if all those pieces are there, and I think Tyrie gets to be a really fun, dynamic, unique piece to that defensive line, I think that's probably his best spot, right? In terms of, is that over center? Is that coming off the edge? Is that, only showing up on third down? That to me, I think is another one of those great mysteries that we have headed into 2025 and headed into camp. But again, Raiders fans are going to be sick of hearing this, right? And we've said this a lot. This guy has every tool in the toolbox physically he's got. He's big. He's strong. He's fast. You look at him and you're like, this guy could have played power forward, be a stretch four in the NBA, with the size of his arms and everything. So I think for him, the return of Rob Leonard is so important for him. I think Patrick Graham, staying as DC is huge for him, that continuity. So I think for him, I don't want to say a cop-out answer, Paul, but if the pieces around him are working and they let Tyrie be, in the best possible way, just another dude on that defensive line, I think that is probably the best recipe for success for him in 2025.
Yeah, I agree, and I fully agree with what you said about he's one of the biggest mysteries. He's definitely one of the most I'm not going to say polarizing, but biggest mysteries. Like you said, what is he going to bring? Because if you get anything more than what you've gotten over the previous 2 years, then that's gravy, right? Because you're not really, again, as you said, the most respectful way, you're not really expecting a lot. And that's weird to say about a guy that's a top 10 draft pick, but anything you get is just going to be bonus. And that's the ironic thing about him. And when we spoke to him during OTAs in minicamp, he said himself, he's feeling the best that he's felt in years. As a rookie, he's coming in off of the foot surgery. Last year, he was slowed by things. And now there's that continuity, like you mentioned, Rob Leonard on the line and Patrick Graham's defense. And now you got a defensive minded coach and Pete Carroll out there. So he is, to me, the most intriguing. That's the word I was looking for. Intriguing part of maybe not just the defensive line, but the defense as a whole.
Yeah, and I mean, think about this, Paul, right? And I know we'll talk about Maxx and the edge rushers here in a little bit, but if you, in theory, get a return to form for Maxx Crosby, which I think all of us are expecting we will see in 2025. Malcolm Koonce comes back healthy, is able to take that next step. It remains to be seen what Christian Wilkins' status is, but if he's somehow in the mix, and now all of a sudden, and I'm making up a number, Paul, if you're getting 5, 6, 7 sacks from Tyrie now too, all of a sudden you're like, okay, like this is, again, this is the version of the defensive line that we expected to see 12 months ago, delayed for a variety of reasons. We get it in 2025. But yeah, intriguing, mysterious, all those adjectives, I think are the great things to describe Tyrie Wilson as we head into 2025. But Paul, question one to you, and sticking in I don't want to say the mysterious theme, but in terms of a little bit of a positive unknown, Darion Porter, right?
Yeah.
Darion Porter, a guy who, again, we talk about having all the physical attributes that you want out of a player at his position as a DB. I mean, long arms, tall, fast, history playing on the opposite side of the football for those ball skills, right? Like, he is an exciting rookie. I think that, you take Ashton Jeanty out of it because it kind of feels like he's in his own little stratosphere right now as a rookie. But the rest of the rookie class, Darion is one of the guys that I'm really, really excited to play ball or to watch play ball in 2025. When we look at his role on this defense, and again, it is one of those things that I'm sure will grow and mature and evolve as we get through the season. Like, what do you see from him as we get ready for training camp and look ahead to the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, he's a work in progress, and he's really intriguing. Again, we're going to keep using this word for the defense, I think, all year long, is intriguing. I wrote a piece on Raiders.com earlier this offseason, and taking a look at the cornerbacks in general and him in particular, from 2 Hall of Fame cornerbacks, Eric Allen, our guy, and Mike Haynes also. And a lot of people in the building told Mike Haynes, hey, there's one guy here I want you to look at. And it wasn't because of his skill set. It was because of his build, the height, the weight, the speed, the long arms. He reminded everybody in the building of a young Mike Haynes. So Mike took a not having to say a liking to him, but paid some special mind to him for a couple of days during practice. And yeah, so that's something there that I'm going to keep an eye on is when it comes to him, it's this continual work in progress. Beyond that, he checks every box you're talking about if you're trying to recreate the Legion of Boom, also because he looks like Richard Sherman out there as well. The real cool part about Darion Porter, though, to me, is that he's a converted receiver. And what do you always say about cornerbacks? And you would never say this to a cornerback's face, right? But they play cornerback because they can't catch the ball. This guy could catch the ball as a receiver. So, and he's big and he's fast and he's long. He's got all those things. He's just as many of those things as he has, he's just as raw. So when you ask me, what do I expect seeing from him going forward? Just this continual work in progress, who I would not be shocked if by the last third of the season, he's actually out there getting more than some run and actually getting some starting reps.
And it's interesting too, and we kind of talked about this with Ashton last week when we were talking about the offense. Like, Darion's another one of those guys, Paul, that I think is going to be playing his best football when the weather turns, November, December, January, and hopefully beyond. Like, that is, I think, when we're going to see the best version of Darion. And I just think, it's the ultimate compliment to him, and he's been so open and transparent about, like, saying, hey, I got a lot to learn still. Like, I am the furthest thing from a finished product. And then you go back to April, and he got picked in the 3rd round. Like, this is not like a UDFA flyer that the Raiders took on this kid out of Iowa State. So it's like, there's clearly something there. John Spytek and Pete Carroll and the staff clearly see something in him that they like, and they feel comfortable saying, hey, we can mold and we can turn him into what we want him to be. Because, again, all the physical attributes are there. I mean, we've had a chance to talk to him a few times. Just a sharp, intelligent, well-spoken, a good head on his shoulders type of guy who is fully committed to not only becoming the best version of himself, but going through the proper way to do it and trusting the process and understanding that the coaches are here to do that, coach him up. So again, Darion, a guy that I'm very excited to see in 2025. All right, Paul, question number 3, what you got?
Oh, I'm going to stick on the back end of the defense for you here. So, and real simple, and I know it's a prediction here. Week 1, at New England, who are your 2 starting cornerbacks on the outside?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I'm not going to go against everything that we were just talking about and say that Darion and say that Darion's going to be out there week 1. I'm not going to do it, Paul. I will give some credibility to what you and I have just spent the past 6 minutes discussing. Right. So I'm going to say JB. I think JB just kind of as the incumbent, right, as the guy who's been there, done that, again, healthy now as we enter 2025. I think JB, and then I don't want to say a flyer at all, but a guy that, and again, I'm gonna have to kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Couch this a little bit by saying
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys, Paul, that I don't put too much stock in what we see during the offseason program, right? Like I just want to see you out there running around. Number one, I want to see everyone healthy, right? Like that's really candidly all I care about in terms of the offseason program. But a guy that I think had a really good offseason program, a guy that had a really good mini camp, is our friend Darnay Holmes.
Yes.
An interesting player for sure. A guy that has been around for a minute, going into year 7 now. And again, I think you look at some of the measurables for Darnay as I just pulled them up. 5'10", a little under 200, so certainly not in the Darion Porter mold of corner, but a guy again like. You know as well as I do, you don't stick around in the NFL for 6, 7, 8 years if you're not good at your job, right? Like there is such a short shelf life, a short window for DBs in particular, that if you're not doing what you need to do, they're going to find someone who can. So I'm going to say JB and Darnay, and kind of piggyback off you and say by Thanksgiving we're going to have a steady dose of Darion Porter.
I like it. I like the Darnay Holmes call. I think Jacorian is the incumbent, so you put him out there. Even though, like you said, we're not going to put a lot of stock into what we saw during the offseason. You could pencil in a starting lineup there, but I don't know why. I'm kind of feeling Eric Stokes a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe because of the experience as well. He and Darnay, they're kind of the grizzled vets, so to speak, if there are any grizzled vets in the secondary. But yeah, it's going to be. Again, if you had to ask me, okay, what are the 3 position battles to watch in training camp? Cornerback is definitely going to be one of them.
Yeah. And I think it's just going to be one of those things that, I think we're all going to kind of have to, I don't want to say limit ourselves, but keep everything in perspective where, hey, Darnay has a great Tuesday, and then JB has a great Wednesday, and Mello Dotson has a great Thursday. Like, I think it's going to be such an up and down day by day thing. And I'm such a firm believer too, Paul, like, especially in the early goings of camp, I read next to nothing into who's running with the first team, who's running with the second team. Like, I know the fans get a kick out of that. And, this undrafted guy's running with the ones. Oh, what does this mean? What does it mean? Probably nothing. That's what it means. It means probably nothing. It means the coaches are mixing stuff up. But all the same, I think keeping a healthy perspective on that DB battle throughout the summer is going to be important for all of us. But again, certainly one of the more intriguing storylines to follow as the team reports here for camp. Yep. So, Paul, speaking of things that we are intrigued by, question numero 4 to you. Again, we will get to Maxx Crosby in a little bit. The Condor is everywhere. He's omnipresent. Last week when he walked by literally as we were recording. A guy not named Maxx Crosby. Take 98 out of it. Who do we think is poised for I don't want to say breakout at all, but a guy that you're looking for to not only playing well, but contributing in a major way in 2025?
Yeah, so we already talked about Tyrie. He's more intriguing than somebody you would expect to have that breakout kind of season, right? It's like in baseball where they say chicks dig the long ball. I think in football, it's all about getting the quarterback and sacking him. So I want to see what's up with Malcolm Koonce coming off of that season-ending knee injury that happened the week of the season opener last year. We never got to see him at all. And he was a guy coming into his own, ready for a breakout year, ready for a big contract. And now he's back. He's healthy in camp. We saw him kind of working off to the side by himself, which is to be expected. Malcolm Koonce, he to me is the guy that I want to see exactly with a healthy Maxx, depending upon what happens with Christian Wilkins in the middle, depending upon what happens with Tyrie. Malcolm Koonce is a guy that can really, he had 8 sacks 2 years ago. I want to see if he's going to improve upon that and be a guy that you can really kind of hang your hat on. You know what you're going to get out of Maxx Crosby. There's wild cards all over the rest of that defensive line. So the better Maxx Crosby is, the better everybody else is going to be. The better it's actually going to help the secondary as well, obviously, right? I mean, pass rush helps coverage helps pass rush. Again, I keep saying this to you, Eddie. Long answer to your short question. Malcolm Koonce is the guy that I think is really going. I think Malcolm Koonce is the guy that I'm going to watch all season long to see exactly where he steps up. How
Yeah,
about you?
Malcolm is a great choice, right? I think Malcolm is
Yeah.
in so many ways, like, we were talking about Tyrie a minute ago. Like, if you're getting 6, 7, whatever sacks out of Tyrie, like, you feel like, hey, this is kind of, we're playing with house money a little bit.
Yeah.
But, kind of, almost on the opposite side of the coin with Malcolm, it feels now going into this year, even coming off of the big injury, it feels like there's a level of expectation attached to Malcolm, and that's a good
Yeah.
thing, right?
There
So,
should be.
yeah,
Yeah.
and exactly, there should be. And so I think for me, if you look up and at the end of the year that, Max has 13 sacks and, Malcolm's got 9, 10, if Malcolm can find his way into double digits, like, whew, not only does that really change the face of this defense, but to me, it wouldn't be all that surprising understanding what Malcolm was and who he was and the type of football he was playing before the injury. So Malcolm, a great choice there. I'm going to move one layer back on the defense. I'm going to go with a new face, Landon Roberts, E-Rob.
Oh.
I am really intrigued by what E-Rob is going to bring to this, not only this team, or excuse me, not this defense, but this team in general, right?
Yeah.
Fans feeling a certain type of way about Robert Spillane no longer being in silver and black. Robert, a great Raider. He was so good with us. I know he is wonderful with you in the media too. And, E-Rob kind of stepping into that role now, gonna wear the green dot and kind of be the quarterback of the Raiders defense. And again, a guy with a lot of experience, he's played a decade in the NFL. Right.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, when he lines up there on a Sunday late morning and he looks over at the opposing offense, there are going to be very few things, Paul, that he has not seen before. Right. So I think to have this steadying hand in the middle of the defense, to have kind of, for lack of a better term, the grown up in the room on this very young, very excitable Raiders defense, I think is going to be huge. I think he checks all the boxes in terms of what you want from that middle linebacker position. I think he's talking the talk the right way. I think he's walking the walk the right way. And I think now it's just a matter of going through training camp, staying healthy, and really kind of putting this thing into action come week 1. But again, if I were to, if someone told me in January that, hey, E-Rob's going to have, I don't want to say like a breakout campaign, but he is going to be as solid as can be, I buy that. I think that he was an incredible free agent pickup. I'm excited to see what 2025 has in store for him. And again, you and I both know that it might not be the sexiest position, and it's certainly the way that offenses have changed over the past couple of years. Like, the middle linebacker, I don't want to say has lost its luster at all, but the expectations and the job responsibilities have changed. But if you have a good one, and if you have a really good one, I can be a game changer for your defense for sure.
No doubt. And just in speaking with him during Raiders Media Day last month, in June, actually, it was real. And you could feel the energy, the enthusiasm, everything coming off of him as he sat on the set with us as we interviewed him. And you say, okay, this is a guy that's a leader. And losing Robert Spillane, that's what they needed to replace right then and there. And yeah, it's tough losing Robert Spillane from that aspect. But also, if you're bringing in an entirely new coaching staff, except for the defensive coordinator and the defensive line coach, it's not like there's a continuity there anyway. So you're all kind of starting from scratch. So to bring him in, a guy he's been there, he's got the pelts on the wall. He's definitely a guy that, the guys are going to follow.
Yeah.
And it's hard to follow someone if they don't have the pelts on the wall or the experience. He's coming with those things in droves. So that's a good thing there. I like that as well.
100%. All right, Paul G, what do you got?
So I'm going to stick with the linebackers. Devin White. What constitutes a good season for Devin White at linebacker? Because this is a guy that a lot of Raider fans would say. See, myself personally, when I was in college, one of my all-time favorite shows was Quantum Leap, science fiction show where a guy, Dr. Sam Beckett, went back in time to make right what once went wrong. A lot of Raider fans thought that they should have drafted him first in the first round when they had the 3 draft picks back in 2018, was it? 2019? It did happen. He had some good years, then a couple lean years. Now he's back. Now he's with the Raiders, where a lot of fans thought he should have been from the start. What constitutes a good season for Devin White at linebacker?
As you were talking, Paul, I was looking up some of the numbers, and Mr.
I
White
bet
is
you're
not.
looking up Quantum Leap.
Yes, and Quantum Leap. Devin White hasn't played in 17 games since 2022, right? He plays in 14 in 2023, and then last year just 7 with the one start. I think for me, and I don't think it's fair to say, hey, this guy needs to play 17 games, right? But I think if he's closer to that 14, 15 level than to 7, I think that is a positive step. And look, I remember that time in Raider history, right, where there was all this talk about Devin White at the time. If I remember correctly, Paul G, the Raiders were in search of a linebacker in the mold of one Devin White, and ultimately they decided to go a different way. But I think for me, if he's out there, if he's healthy, if he is a consistent contributor, I don't think anyone. Now look, if he really turns back the clock and finds the fountain of youth and he's a Pro Bowl linebacker, fantastic, awesome.
Right.
But if he's just healthy and a solid contributor and a solid piece in this puzzle for Patrick Graham, that to me feels like a W, right? If you get a few of those, a few of those big aha moments, if you get a few of like, oh, that's the Devin White that we expected, I think to me that's a win. But I think number one, we've heard it from so many coaches, you can't make the club if you're in the tub, right? You need to stay healthy, you need to be available, right? So I think if he is healthy, if he is available, if he is able to go out there every Sunday and do his thing, I think to me, Paul, that seems like a pretty big win.
Yeah, the best ability is availability, as they say, as well as being in the tub. I like that one as well. I'm meant to use that on Raiders.
Yes, please do.
Surely. But yeah, so that to me, again, is part of what, again, the most intriguing position group on defense, I think, might just be the linebackers, because you don't know what you're getting. And like you said, anything above baseline is going to be a win, because you know what you're getting up front, or at least you think you know what you can project what you're going to get up front. You can kind of project what you're going to get in the back, and in the middle, it's just this mystery. So, which again leads to, what makes me wonder, what is the base defense anymore? Is it a 4-3? Is it a nickel? Is it a semblance of a 3-4? The one thing that this was brought up to me by our producers here was the last time Pete Carroll took over a program in Seattle after he left USC. He's a defensive-minded coach. We all know this. But when he took over Seattle, he did the same thing there in his first year that he did here with the Raiders, which is this. He basically cleaned house on the defensive side of the ball, but kept his coordinator and he kept his defensive line coach. What did he do this time in Las Vegas? Kept the coordinator, kept the defensive line coach. So there's some blueprints that we can look back on to see exactly what the defense is going to look like.
Well, and I think the Pete Carroll element to all this defensively is something we haven't really talked about, but I think certainly bears at least a short conversation of, I think, and we were talking about Tyrie being a mystery, a man of intrigue. Well, I think the Pete Carroll effect on all this, there's also a level of mystery and intrigue, because this is, a Hall of Fame coach who, to your point, has made his money, has made his bones on the defensive side of the football, has been very clear and open, and says, I'm a defensive guy, right? And so what does that... What do his fingerprints really look like on this defense? And it's so hard, right, to make that, any type of firm assessment in the middle of July, right? I mean, again, like when we've been out there for OTAs and minicamp, everything is so vanilla. And again, it's just guys, I don't want to say going through the motions, but, really there's more of an emphasis on the mental side of things, on kind of getting back into the rhythm of real football. You're not going deep into what the defensive scheme is going to be on 3rd and 7 when the team's at the opposing 9. Like, you're just not doing that. Right. So I think for me, certainly as we go through training camp, I think it'll ramp up again once the preseason games start going, and we'll have a better idea, maybe a little bit, of what Pete Carroll's impact on this defense is going to be. But again, it's one of those things that we're really not going to know until the fall. We're really not going to have a full comprehensive idea of what the 2025 defense is, how it's different than the 2024 defense until they're playing meaningful football. But just hit on the linebacker. One last thing on the linebackers, real quick, Paul G. A name that I want everyone to keep an eye on, and I hope you guys clip this if this proclamation becomes noteworthy in 7 months. Tommy Eichenberg, Just a name to remember, just a guy to keep watching, a guy that is not only a friend of the program, but I think a guy that is poised to kind of make one of those big leaps in 2025. So just everyone keep that in your back pocket and send this to me in February if I was correct in my prediction. All right, let's see. So is it my turn, Paul G? Am I bringing us home now?
I think you're bringing us home.
All right,
bottom of the sixth.
Here we go, bottom of the sixth, coming on home. Okay, we knew we'd get to Maxx Crosby. I know everyone. That's all everyone wants to talk about. I get it. The Condor is great. We love him. Friend of the program, et cetera, et cetera. Not to put a number on it, but to kind of put a number on it, right? You look at Max's last 3 years: 12.5 sacks, 14.5 sacks. 7.5 sacks. Now, I think it's important to keep the 7.5 number in perspective, as Maxx only played 12 games last year. But for Maxx to return, not only, I don't want to say to form, but for Maxx to get back into that double-digit sack conversation, right? Which is, as one of the premier edge rushers in the NFL, you're not going to find anyone who's going to dispute you on that. But as one of those dudes, that's where he should live. That is the expectation. That is his own expectation that he is going to live in that world of double-digit sacks. For him to get there in 2025, Paul, what must happen?
The secondary has to hold up to give him more time to get to the quarterback. And that's, again, Maxx is going to do what Maxx is going to do, right? There's a lot of his sacks come just from him freewheeling and from him being technical and everything. But the better the coverage is, the more time it's going to give him to get to the quarterback. So that's number one. Number two, whoever's on the other side of him, whether it's Malcolm Koonce, Tyrie, if Christian Wilkins finds his way back on the field in the middle, that's going to take attention away from him. That's going to allow him to get there as well. And number three, it's really just all on him, his health. Mm-hmm. He's going to get what he's going to get. This is a guy that is already in the conversation for one of the greats in team history. The only thing missing is the winning from a team perspective. This is the guy I talked to Howie Long last year at the Super Bowl when he was in Las Vegas and talked to him about Maxx Crosby. And he said, Maxx is this big football historian, this. And he was talking to Howie about the great lines that he played on, where it was Howie Long, Reggie Kinlaw, Bill Paskal, Lyle Alzado. And Howie told me, we'd find a spot for Maxx to play on that line. So that's the respect that he's already garnered from those guys. To get to his own level of satisfaction, to get to where he needs to be and where he lives, like you said, in double-digit sacks, he needs a lot of other things to happen as well, because football is the ultimate team game. It's not an individual game. So if the secondary is holding up and he's getting help from the other guys on the other side, and if he stays healthy, I think he's off and running again to not only being a double-digit sack guy and being a Pro Bowler, but now you're talking about first-team All-Pro, because that's what you're starting to see with the other guys is health is becoming an issue as they keep playing in the league. And it seems like yesterday when I was on that tour at the Google headquarters with that class of when they were all rookies, and it's unbelievable. It's already 5, 6, 7 years ago. So that to me is again the long answer to your short question.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Paul. I think health is the easy one to come to, right? Because it is pretty incredible, kind of looking back after the fact that Maxx, I don't want to say completely hobbled, but Maxx not at 100% health still had 7.5 sacks a year ago. Like that's not any in 7.5 in 12 games. So
playing on one leg, playing on 10 of those.
Yeah, games. Exactly. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And I think in the best possible way, like to your point, like Maxx is going to be one of those dudes that if he's out there on one leg, he's still going to find his way to get to the quarterback, right? It might not be as consistently, and he might have to take a few reps off, which I know will break his heart, but he's still going to find a way to be effective defensively. So what does he need to get to double-digit sacks in 2025? Again, health is wealth, baby. I think number one, if he's able to go out there for 17 weeks and do his thing. But I also think, to your point, getting just a little bit of help from the defensive line. And I'm not here to besmirch. Exactly. I'm not here to besmirch the previous efforts of any of the guys on the defensive line. Certainly not. But I think that Maxx has put himself in such a place that he is the guy. When we talk about defensive players in the NFL, he is now in that conversation of the 4, 5, 6 best guys defensively. He is one of one in this regard, right? If you're an opposing offensive coordinator coming to Allegiant Stadium, what is the first thing you got to figure out a way to do? It's stop 98, right? Yeah. So if his supporting cast can give him a little bit of time, and we're not taught, I think you brought up a great point about the secondary, Paul. Maxx is at a place now where an extra half second is now the difference between a 13-yard sack and an incomplete pass, right? So I think if he's able to get that level of consistent help, I think it will spell big things for him in 2025. And again, I think if he's healthy, if he's ready to do his thing consistently, that would go a long way as well. And again, I'm really interested too, coming back off the injury and coming back healthy. Like, I wonder if Pete Carroll is going to ever go to Maxx and say, look, brother, you're playing a lot of football. Would it kill you maybe on a 2nd and 13 to maybe come take a breather and sit with me for 35 seconds on the sideline? I have a feeling I know how that conversation would ultimately go with our friend the Condor. But again, it's one of those things now where maybe you start thinking about certainly not taking him off the field for an extended period of time, but kind of understanding that this is a marathon, not a sprint for number 98. So it's a very interesting kind of thing to monitor as we go through the regular season.
Yeah, Eddie, and beyond that, I was just listening to his most recent podcast last week when he had Chris Long on with him, and he actually acknowledged that it's not so much a pitch count as much as he can't go as hard as he can every single snap in practice and in games and everything else. Now, I'm sure in games that's a different animal entirely, but he acknowledged, and I thought it was kind of newsworthy that he acknowledged that, yeah, he's going to have to take a break, that Howie Long advised him, hey, man, you're going to kill yourself out there if you keep going 100 miles an hour every single snap and in practice. And you got to give yourself a break and let your body heal, especially once you start approaching that magic number of 30 as in age. So not saying that he's there, he's going to break down, but now that he's felt his mortality, so to speak, with that injury, again, that happened so early in the season last year on the second to last play of the game in Baltimore. I mean, it just shows you that the NFL really does stand for not for long, especially if you can't stay healthy. And for him, the fact that he's acknowledging and realizing that, I need to take a snap off here and there to help elongate the process. That to me also shows a maturity as well.
Well, and I'm glad
listening to those guys. Yeah,
and I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, because I've had this conversation not only with Maxx, but with Max's mom, who is a staple around here during training camp, where I was like, it's been such a pleasure just as like a human being, not so much as a football player, but to watch him kind of have this evolution as a dude, right? Like, to come in here as this skinny kid with no tattoos, just trying to make a team, right? And now is the face of this franchise, is one of the premier guys in the NFL. But to go from, okay, I'm just a guy trying to make the team, to, damn, I'm a really good football player, to, okay, I'm a really good football player, but now I'm starting to bring guys with me, to, okay, now I'm an elite football player and I'm bringing guys with me, to now as we enter this next chapter of, okay, I can now kind of look inwardly a little bit more, and to your point, kind of acknowledge like, hey, I might need to change the smallest things, right, in order to make this adventure a 13-year adventure instead of a 9 or a 10-year adventure. So again, we talk about the evolution of Maxx, the maturity of Maxx, and I think all of that goes hand in hand. And like I said, if all goes well, he's going to be back in the biggest, baddest way in 2025, and we're going to be seeing a lot of those patented sack celebrations down there on the Strip at Allegiant Stadium. Well, we've done it, Paul. 6 questions about the defense in the books, and next week we get to do my favorite thing, probably my favorite exercise of the entire offseason. We get to crack 6 ice-cold bruchachos and discuss everyone's favorite, special teams and our beloved specialists. So until next week, Freddie Paskal, our friend Paul G, and everyone else at Silver and Black Productions, we thank you. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, for our next episode of Upon Further Review.